So we're going to first start with rationality. Basically, one of the key assumptions we make in economics is we assume people are rational. Basically, you make a decision that is best for yourself or whatever it may be in that specific transaction. So if the benefit outweighs the cost, you're going to carry out the transaction. Now, this is a key assumption in economics that doesn't hold in real life all the time. So as we know, people don't always act rationally. People still litter, people still speed, people still text and drive. They still don't act rationally. So in economics, we assume rationality in order for our models to hold. Again, we're assuming people are going to do what's best for themselves, or an entity is going to do what's best for themselves. Maximize profit and minimize your cost, or maximize utility, minimize your cost. So the key thing we look at is marginal benefit. So marginal benefit is the added benefit you get from one additional unit. So in our previous video, we talked about cookies. So if I offer you one cookie to the second cookie, how much more happy would you be? If I offer you from the second to the third, fourth to the fifth, sixth and seventh. So again, you only can consume so much. You only get so much benefit from certain products that you consume or produce. So it can be consumer or producer. So marginal benefit is an additional benefit you get from consuming one more unit. So marginal benefit will be seen as MB, and then we also have marginal cost. Marginal cost is the additional cost that you incur for either consuming one more unit or producing one more unit. So if we're looking at cookies, if we go from the first to the second, second to the third, fourth and fifth, there's a cost associated with consuming more and more. So this cost could be that you're starting to feel much more sick, you don't have as much as space in your stomach, whatever it may be, there's a cost associated with it. So this is going to be MC. So now the key thing here is when marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, you're going to carry out the transaction, meaning you will partake in this transaction, you're going to consume more. When the benefit exceeds the cost, that's when you go out and do something. When the cost exceeds the benefit, you will not. So again, when marginal benefit is greater than marginal cost, you'll carry out the transaction. So an example of that would be, why are you watching this video right now? The whole goal of watching this video is to acquire some form of knowledge that's going to help you on the test. So by watching this video, you weighed out your benefits and you also weighed out your cost. The benefits are you learned something, there might be extra credit in the video, whatever it may be. There's something good that comes out of it. The cost of this is you could be doing something else with your time. You could be watching a different video. You could be watching a new music video that just dropped, listening to music, taking a nap, whatever it may be. You could be doing something else. That's one of the key things here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is your opportunity cost. Basically, opportunity cost is what you give up in order to get something. So this is something that's in your everyday life. So another way that economics is in your everyday life is anytime you carry out a transaction, anytime you make a choice, there's always a cost associated with it. You're giving something up in order to get something. So why did you take this summer class? The whole goal or the benefit of this was to go out and either get credits, learn something, whatever it may be. The cost, you could be doing something else with your time. Now, the definition of opportunity cost is something you give up in order to get something. Again, it's a cost. You have to give it up. So just make sure you remember that, and we'll do some calculations with this as well. So we're going to go over a little example. Okay, so you made the conscious and smart decision to watch this video. Again, really good thing that you did that. But think about what else you could be doing. There's various things. I named a couple earlier, but there's a lot of things that you could be doing as well. You could be watching another video. You could be sleeping. You could be eating. You could be running. You could be doing anything else, but you chose to do this. So whatever you would rather be doing right now, and this is going to differ from each individual. Not everyone wants to watch another video. Not everyone wants to go run. Not everyone wants to go eat. Everyone has a different cost. So whatever you would rather be doing right now besides watching this video, that is your opportunity cost. So what you gave up in order to do this specific activity, that's your opportunity cost. Okay, so now we're going to do some calculations with this. So let's say we have two individuals. Let's just say Mo and Steph. So this is going to walk you through the calculations on how to calculate opportunity cost. Because again, we can do this mathematically, or if I were to give it to you in a word problem, you can calculate or figure it out through there as well. So they're going to produce two types of goods. Let's just say paper and apples. So given their amount of resources, they're both going to have the same access to resources. They're just going to be producing different amounts. So for Mo, let's just say she can produce 10 pieces of paper or 6 apples, and then Steph can produce 4 pieces of paper and 8 apples. So again, these are just numbers I gave to you. These are just completely drawn up. Okay, so now we want to know what each individual gives up in order to produce something. So before we get to that, there's two other things we need to talk about too, is absolute and comparative advantage. That ties into opportunity cost. And we'll talk about that after we do the calculations. So we're going to find out the opportunity cost for Mo first. So we want to find out how much does she have to give up to produce 1 paper, how much does she have to give up to produce 1 apple. So if I ask you what's the opportunity cost of producing 1 paper, I'm just going to put 1p, that's for paper, in terms of whatever the other product is. It's always going to be one product in terms of the other. So this is what we want to know. This is what we want to find out. To produce 1 paper, how much apples do we give up? So basically we're going to set up our formula. So we're just going to plug in what we already know. So if we're looking at Mo, this is the person of interest, we're going to look at these numbers. So 10 and 6. And you want to write it out exactly how you see it here. So papers in terms of apples. So 10 paper equals 6 apples. Again, I got these numbers down here from up here, from our table. So now we want to make this look like this. In order to do that, what we're going to do is divide by whatever number is on this side. So if you divide 10 by 10, you should get 1. So that's your first step. Now you have 1 piece. So this left-hand side, they're both similar. Now, if you divide by 10 on one side, you have to divide by 10 on the other side as well. So 6 divided by 10. So now we know what our opportunity cost for Mo is to produce 1 piece of paper. So to produce 1 piece of paper, she gives up 0.6 of an apple. Now it's important to know this number. This is basically calculating what you're giving up in numbers, basically. Okay, so we calculate the opportunity cost for Mo. For the first one, it's paper in terms of apples. Now let's say I ask you what's the opportunity cost of producing apples in terms of paper for the same individual. So for Mo. Okay, so now what I want to do, I want 1 apple in terms of the other product. So apples in terms of paper now. Now we're going to do the same setup. We're going to set it up exactly how we see it up here. But now what we're going to do is it's going to be 6 apples equals 10 paper. Because again, we're focusing on this one now. We want this to look like that. So we're going to divide by 6 on both sides. You always want to cancel out the left-hand side. So it's going to be 10 divided by 6. Now you can divide it down, whatever it may be, depending on what the answer choices are. But we can just leave it as 10 over 6 as well. Now, I'm going to go back and show you something. So what do you notice about this number right here and this number right here? So one's 6 over 10, the other one's 10 over 6. So once you calculate one opportunity cost, you automatically know the other. It's just the inverse, or the reciprocal, sorry. It's going to be the reciprocal. So in this case, if you calculate 6 over 10 for her opportunity cost of producing 1 paper, it's going to be 10 over 6 for the other. So just another reminder, this left-hand side, this is what you produce. This right-hand side, this is what you give up. So this right-hand side, this is your opportunity cost. This left-hand side, this is what you're producing. So to produce one paper, you give up 6/10 of an apple. To produce one apple, you give up 10/6 of a piece of paper. So again, this is just looking at who produces what and so forth. Okay, so we did Mo. Now what we're gonna do is for the other individual. So I'm gonna move some of these up just so we have some more space. So now we're doing it for Steph. You can go ahead and do this on your own. So to calculate the opportunity cost of producing one piece of paper for Steph, it's going to be in terms of apples. Now you're going to set it up exactly how you see it up here. So 4 paper equals 8 apples. Your first step, you want to divide both sides by 4. Again, you want 1 on the left-hand side. So divide by 4, divide by 4. Now, you're going to get 2 apples. So, for Stephanie, or Steph, to produce 1 paper, you give up 2 apples. Now we're going to do the same thing for the other way. So 1 apple in terms of paper. So as you remember, once you calculate 1, you automatically know the other. Now if you don't believe me, we can walk through the math again. So now it's going to be apples in terms of paper. So it's 8 apples equals 4 paper. Divide by 8 on both sides. And what you're going to get is 1/2. Again, that's the reciprocal of 2. So now we know what our opportunity cost is. So to produce 1 paper, she gives up 2 apples. To produce 1 apple, 1/2 a paper. It's pretty basic so far. Now what we're going to do is we're going to compare our opportunity cost for our individuals. So we're going to say this is Steph. And then this is going to be Mo. So for 1 paper, she gave up 6/10 apple. 1 apple, she gave up 10/6 paper. Now from here, what we're going to do is compare these numbers. So you always want to compare it when you look at opportunity costs. Who's more efficient, who gives up less. So the couple things we're going to look at is absolute advantage. So absolute advantage is basically whoever can outright produce the most given their resources. So when you look at absolute advantage, I'm not going to write it all out. Absolute advantage is just looking at raw numbers. So for that, we're just focusing on this table. You want to know who produces the most of each product. So for paper, who produces the most? You should know that it's Mo. 10 is greater than 4. So Mo has the absolute advantage in producing paper. Now, who has the absolute advantage in producing apples? It should be Steph, because 8 is greater than 6. Again, that's the only thing we use absolute advantage for, is to basically know who produces the most. The most important one we want to worry about is comparative advantage. Basically, who gives up less to produce a certain product. Now, the reason why this is so important is because if you know who produces the least, they're more efficient at producing this product. So basically, we're going to be comparing our opportunity costs. So when you see CA, this is comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is looking at our different opportunity costs. We're comparing 2 individuals, and we want to see who has advantage in producing a certain product. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to compare the opportunity cost of producing papers in terms of apples, and then apples in terms of paper. So for the first one, we're going to focus on we're going to focus on this first row. So Steph, to produce 1 paper, she gives up 2 apples. For Mo, to produce 1 apple, she gives up 6/10 of a apple. So in this case, who gives up less, Steph or Mo? From this, you should know 0.6 is much less than 2. So Mo has a comparative advantage in producing paper. So she is more efficient at producing paper than Steph. Now, we're going to look at apples. Who is more efficient at producing apples? So here, Steph, she gives up half a paper to produce an apple. For Mo, she gives up 10/6, which is going to be greater than 1/2. So in this case, Steph has a comparative advantage in producing apples. Now, there's two individuals, each are really good at making one certain product. What do you think they're going to do for the other product? So here, both of them have the ability to produce both products. But in this case, they're going to trade. The key thing to remember here is trade. Mo's really good at making paper. Steph's really good at producing apples. So in this case, they're going to trade their products. So let's just say we're Steph. I produce apples and I'm going to trade for paper because I'm really good at making it. Basically, you want to use all of your resources efficiently, and this is how you reach efficiency. Basically, you're producing your product at the most efficient rate, you give the least amount of the other product, and you're trading. Basically, you fill that void of not being able to produce that product. So this is how we look at trade and comparative advantage. So this is a really important concept, and it looks at opportunity cost as well as trade. So if you guys have any questions, by all means, leave them in the comment section. Other than that, I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching this video.